Hi guys, so today I'm going to show you how I made my really girly watercolor card. So right here I have a plastic bendy sheet and I'm going to show you that on top of a white piece of cardstock. Right here I have cardstock 5.5 by 4 1/4 and I just have regular cardstock that I am using. And you can also use watercolor cardstock if you want. So you will also need a spray bottle, which I just showed. And okay, so now I am going to be smushing the ink on the plastic sheet, and right here I am using mustard seed, and I'm using all distressed inks, and distressed inks react with water. So now I'm using spiced marmalade, and now I will be using picked raspberry. So I'm just going to smush all of these colors on this plastic sheet, and I'm showing you on this white background just so you can see the colors. And I'm going to spray the colors until they bubble up. And you want them to bubble up just in case if you just don't want any ink left behind on the page, if that makes sense. Or else you will get kind of like a darker area, if that makes sense. So I am just going to apply that on my cardstock and smush it on my cardstock. And I also want to mention that this is fast forwarded, at least this first half is, because this video was going to be way too long if I didn't fast forward it. So I just wanted to fast forward it just so that it wasn't too long, if you know what I mean. So that is what it looks like all smushed at first. And I do not have a heat gun, so I just wiped it off with a paper towel because I don't have a heat gun to dry it off or anything. So now I am putting on that yellow color. I forget what it's called. Mustard seed. So I put on that mustard seed and I sprayed it with water and just dabbed that around on the paper. And that basically just made white spots all over the paper, and I'm going to do that with each of the colors. And here is spiced marmalade that I am doing the same thing with, but I am also dabbing on the plastic sheet. I'm not rubbing it like I did for the background. I'm dabbing it on so it's just not as much ink. So I'm dabbing it on. And as you can tell, I just bend the sheet when I'm putting those dots on, just to basically control it a little bit better, control where I want those dots to go a little bit better. And now I am going to be using picked raspberry, and I'm going to be doing that a lot on the yellow and orange. If you notice, I do it a lot on the opposite colors, but I also do it on that color just to make that color a little bit darker in some areas. So I do a little bit of work to this later on in the video. I didn't film it. I forgot to film it, so sorry about that. But right now I am trying to let this dry a little bit, so that I can do some more techniques on this. So right now I'm just blowing it with a piece of cardstock so that it would dry. And now I am going to put water droplets on it, because if you know, distressed ink reacts with water, and the water will basically pull the ink away from the surface. As you can tell, that's already happening right here. And I just put the water in my hand and then splatter it over with my fingers just to make bigger droplets. And it's actually a really cool effect, as you can tell. And you can just see it change in front of your eyes. And I'm just going to dry that off. If you have a heat tool, use that. But again, I don't have that. And I always clean off my surface after I do this, so I definitely recommend doing that. So that is that. Hi guys, so it's a few days later because I needed my watercolor to dry, and I added a few more pink, yellow, and orange dots to the card, the watercolor piece, because I really wanted it to, I wasn't really happy with how it looked before, so I added some of that, and I waited for it to completely dry to add some of that. And I'm just going to be making a card out of this, as I said in the thing before. So this is just going to be a really girly card, and I'm going to be using some paper flowers, and I got these from Michael's a really long time ago. I really don't know what they are called, so I just picked out a few flowers that I wanted to use. I used a bigger pink flower, a smaller orange flower, and then a different shaped white flower, but the white flower has like a little gem in the middle instead of a pearl, which I think that adds a little bit of texture to it. So right here I am just deciding how I want the flowers and where I want them. And I was trying to cover up that one area where it's kind of like a blur. There's no spots there. It's just kind of like all mixed together, and I was trying to cover up some of that area because I wasn't really happy with how that turned out. Obviously I didn't cover it all, but I think I did good. So I'm gonna add a foam adhesive to the orange flower because I want that flower to be above all the other flowers, and then I am going to glue down the other two flowers with some Elmer's glue. So I'm just going to be using that, and I just picked up the flower where it was, and then I just put a glue at the center of the flower. So, and with this glue you have a little bit of wiggle time because it does take a little bit to dry. I would say it takes about 10 minutes probably to fully dry. So it does take a little bit to dry, so you do have some wiggle room if you want to change it up a little bit, but you have to change it up in a very short period of time. So I'm just going to adhere that orange flower because I was happy where those flowers were. And that is how that looks like. And now I'm going to add a sentiment in the bottom right corner. And I'm using this stamp set from TPC Studio called Greetings. And there's a whole bunch of greetings on there, as you can tell. And I used the curly happy birthday without the exclamation point. I just cut that exclamation point off. And I put that on a block. And since my watercolor paper wasn't very flat, I just used some washi tape to lay it flat. And I'm just sticking the washi tape on my clothes. And you can also stick it on your arm if you want, to unstick the washi tape so that it doesn't pull your paper apart. So that is what I'm doing, and so I just applied that first piece of washi tape, and then I applied the second piece, but there was still a little bump, so I reapplied that, but I used my plate from the Cuttlebug to make it flat, because it was not becoming flat. So I just used my plate from the Cuttlebug to make it flat, and that was a very good idea, I think. And I just held it down while I put down the other piece of washi tape. And that held it down perfectly, and it was flat and perfect. So now I am going to ink up my stamp with VersaFine in Onyx Black ink. And this ink is very good. It leaves a really crisp image, and I really like that. So I'm just going to ink up my stamp, and as I said, I'm going to stamp it in the right-hand corner. Right-hand bottom left. No, bottom right corner. Sorry about that. So I just stamped that, and then I love how that stamp turned out. I think it's really pretty, and I think the font really goes well with this card. So I'm just removing the washi tape with no problems. As you can tell, it didn't rip up anything, which I'm super happy about. And that is what it basically looks like. And all I'm just going to do is just add this on a card base. And that card base is 8.5 by 5.5. And right here I was measuring it because I didn't know the actual size, but it is 8.5 long and 5.5 wide. So I'm just going to get my Martha Stewart scoreboard. I'm going to score it at 4 1/4. to make a side folding card. Okay, so that is what I am going to do, and I'm just going to fold it right here. Sometimes my cards don't fold super evenly, so I always make sure I line up the two bottom corners and then do what I just did to make sure that I lined up pretty evenly. So that is how the card will be folding. And now I'm going to adhere my watercolor piece. I'm not going to use foam adhesive because I don't want it to be too thick in case if my mom wants to mail it in the envelope, because that flower already has foam adhesive. So I'm just going to be using double stick tape, and that will help it stay flat the whole time, the whole area be flat. So that's what you basically want. Since the watercolor piece is warped, I want it to be flat, so I'm just using the double stick tape to help me keep it flat on the card when I put it on. So I basically put it all around the edges and then a few pieces in the middle to keep the middle flat too. So now I'm going to apply this, and that is what it looks like. And I'm going to open my card before I apply it, and now I'm going to line it up. There should be a little bit of an edge on all of the sides because that piece is 4 inches by 5 1/4. So right there, I'm just pushing it all down, trying to avoid my sentiment that I put down because I didn't want to smear it, because that ink does take a while to dry. And here is my card. I really enjoy it, and thank you for watching. Bye.